think I'd always been a kind of closet entrepreneur, and I wanted to do my own thing. I just didn't really know how to go about doing it. And that's why the Workspace co-working space really came about. So for most market towns or rural towns, the options for Workspace are an office above the hairdressers on the high street. That's a typical one. Or if you're really lucky, a sort of 1980s business centre, somewhere in the middle of nowhere, or a wrinkly tin shed on the edge of town, or occasionally underused agricultural buildings. Those are usually your options. What I knew was that I didn't want to work in any of those places. I'd been a battery chicken trader on a trading floor of 1,000 other battery chicken traders. I didn't want to be sitting in a box on my own for 12 hours a day. I wanted to be around other people who hopefully would stimulate me and inspire me, and that I could bounce ideas off or talk to, or just be part of. You know, I was not connected to this community that I'd moved to in any way whatsoever, so I wanted to be connected to something. So I found myself wandering the streets of Froome, and I found a building that had been on the market for 5 years. It was an old Wesley Methodist school building, 5,000 square foot old school building, that nobody wanted. Luckily, and this is kind of pertinent to what we just heard about, luckily you couldn't get a residential planning consent on it, otherwise we probably wouldn't be able to afford to buy it. So you couldn't get a residential consent on it, and it had an employment use, so after it stopped being a school, it had been a printing works for a little while. So we were lucky enough to be able to acquire that building. It was 5,000 square feet of a pretty run-down building, slightly unloved. The idea that I wanted to create was a model that had sort of 3 strands to it. So workspace, so the kind of physical space that you do your business in. Then resources, so there's the support, the networking, the advisory, that sort of bit. And then lastly, community. And to me, the community bit was probably the most important element of it. I wanted to feel like I belonged to something that was bigger than just my company, whatever that was going to be. I wanted to belong to a network or a collaborative community of other people. So that's really what we based the model on. So I bought this building, I didn't know if it was going to work. The building was relatively cheap. But I didn't want to spend a huge amount of money in case it didn't work. So we spent about £10,000 fitting it out. Me and my friends ripped out most of what was already in there, and then we did a relatively cheap fit out on it. Again, with another friend of mine who came and made all the desks in my garage. So I think Sally's going to talk a little bit about this, but it doesn't have to cost you a truckload of money to do these spaces. So this was back in 2007. I bought the building on the 27th of April, 2007, and we opened on the 4th of June, so 5 weeks later, completely fitted out. We were full in 4 months, much to my amazement. I genuinely had no idea about this town, about what kind of activity there was in this town, the kind of people who worked there, so I was more surprised than anybody. And probably at the beginning, we attracted what you would consider to be typical businesses that you might find in a regional town. So we've got the local bookkeepers and the local accountant, and we've got a letting agent and that sort of thing. There's sort of the mainstay of most rural communities. But what we began to realise was that there was this whole undercurrent of creative industries, particularly people in their 30s, who for lifestyle reasons more than anything else had chosen to move back, a bit like me, to the countryside. And those lifestyle triggers were usually about getting married, having kids, looking for schools, those kind of things. And that wasn't a new trend, that's been going on for a very long time. And in fact, it's going on even more now than it's been than has for a very long time. The numbers of people in their 30s exiting London is at the highest level that it's been historically. So we had this slew of people that seemingly were moving to the southwest and probably wanted to live in Bath but couldn't afford it. And most of the reason that they couldn't afford it was because they were cashing in London and perhaps using some of the money from their house in London to start their business. So they had less money to spend on a fancy house in the middle of Bath, so they were living in the cheaper villages or towns around Bath, and Froome was one of those towns. So we discovered this whole undercurrent of people doing really interesting things, often quite creative things. that didn't really fit anywhere. So a lot of them were working from their back bedroom or from a shed in the garage, in the garden, from the garage. And we realised that there was an opportunity to bring all of these people together. So in a somewhat large leap of faith, I bought the building next door, which was a boxing club, and we demolished it, and we built another 10,000 square feet of workspace. So this was now, we're probably 5 years on. It took quite a while to get the planning. I hope it's a bit quicker here. So we got another 10,000 square feet of workspace, and we sort of at that point started to finesse our model. So tried to work out exactly what the co-working space was all about. So our spaces now, they all have a cafe, so people like to eat and drink. And where we are, we are in the centre of town, but it's not a town where there's 50 coffee shops or 20 places to go and eat at lunchtime. So we thought it's important that we have an offer so that people come in and have breakfast, and they can have coffee, and they can have lunch, and have afternoon snacks. We can keep them there during the day, and also that we can run events. So we have a cafe, and we have a big event space that we use for running lots of our social events, and we rent out to other people. We have meeting rooms, as you'd expect. We have Skype booths, so if you need to make a phone call and you're in the open plan co-working space, you can go and work in that. You can go and make that call on Skype booth privately. And we built those out of old BT phone boxes. We bought the phone boxes and then craned them in and refitted them inside, so they've got a little flip-down desk, and you can sit in there and type away and numbers like all of them. So we have those, and then around that kind of that core of cafe and event space, we built all the kind of resources, physical resources. So we have meeting rooms, we have super fast broadband, so we have gigabit broadband. We're very lucky. I think we were talking a bit earlier on about connectivity here, and actually you've got pretty good connectivity. So we have great broadband, and we run a big program of events, both around supporting businesses, so that could be business advice, it can be peer-to-peer, so where one of our clients might come and talk about what it is that they do as a business and how they started that and the kind of challenges that they face, that sort of thing. We run a mentoring program, so if you come to us and ask us to find you someone to help you, we'll match you with a mentor. And we do a lot of outreach into the town itself, so we have really good connections with Bath University, which is only 15 miles down the road. We have a really good connection to Froome College, which is now an apprenticeship providing college. So we've really kind of plugged the space into the community. And then alongside that, we created the workspace itself. And there's not a kind of one-size-fits-all model. So we have 4 products really that make us up what we do. We have part-time desks, and that's kind of a membership model. It's more like being a gym member than it is renting an office space. So you sign up, and the tariff is based on how much time you want to spend there. So you can rent, our minimum tariff is £20 plus that, and you get 8 hours a month for that, so sort of 1 working day. But you can book it in blocks of an hour, and then it goes up through the scale. So you can have 30 hours a month, which is sort of roughly 1 day a week, or 60 hours a month, and so on. So that's our part-time desk. And then we have a full-time desk where you get to leave all your stuff there, and you get some nice storage and a little bit more privacy. And then we have what we call a work pod, which is really just a micro studio, a little tiny little studio that's just about big enough for 2 people at the squeeze, and it's sort of glass fronted. So you're still in an open plan area, but you've got your own separate space. And then we have studio offices, and our studios, we use a kind of standard model. So our studios are either 20 square metres or 40 square metres. In 20 square metres, you'll get kind of 4 to 5 people in, 40 square metres, 10 people, roughly. And that's our model, that's what we do. And that's all we do. So we've become very expert at understanding what our clients want, and then hopefully capturing them at an early stage and keeping them until they're big enough and old enough to go off and do their own thing. So we typically, a very typical scenario for us is a 30-something, as I was at that time, who has probably moved to a more rural area from a more urban area for a lifestyle reason, as I said. And they probably start their business in their back bedroom, and they want a really easy, affordable entry point to workspace. So they want to be part of something bigger. They probably haven't got a huge budget while they get going. So they'll usually start off on a part-time desk tariff, and as I said, from £20 up. And then they'll move to a full-time desk, and then maybe a work pod, and then a studio, And usually that means we can keep them for sort of 4 or 5 years. That's the kind of typical lifespan. And then they will move on to what we call a grow-on space, so a larger studio elsewhere. So that's the model of what we do. We try and make the spaces very un-office-like. So we don't buy any office furniture anymore. We have everything designed for us, so our buildings have a very unique look. We're really lucky that we've got a fantastic architect and design team. We try very hard to make them really friendly places to work, so you can bring a dog to work. In the Froome building, there's 150 people working in the Froome building, I should say that now. We have 12 dogs that regularly come to work with their owners, sometimes more chaotic than others. What we're trying to do is to blur the distinction between work and home life balance, and just make your work experience as friendly and as welcoming and as kind of all-encompassing as being at home.